Sri Lanka should do more to really communicate to the international community our story, Sri Lanka's story, the kind of successes made, the success story of the country, and what challenges we've had in really communicating this, dealing with the international community, especially in the field of human rights.
Absolutely. I mean, when you take 2022 and the economic collapse, the reason we were able to come out from that was the assistance of the international community. And that was very much a case of communicating with them, presenting what our reform plan was, developing that reform plan, the economic reform plan, in accordance with what the international community was discussing. So that communication lines have to absolutely be maintained. We can't afford to sit back now and say, okay, the economy has stabilized, so you know what, let's just go back to the old way and we'll go to the international community when we need it. It's essential that Sri Lanka recognizes that we are not an isolated island seated in the Indian Ocean. We're an island state, part of the Indian Ocean. We've always spoken about Sri Lanka sitting on its strategic location. Let's make use of that. Let's bring the international community, the global community, to Sri Lanka's shores, and the only way we can do that is communications. We have to be able to go and tell them, this is what we want to do. This is what we are doing. It is only at that point that we can then expect them to understand where we're coming from. I mean, you mentioned human rights. We have to go and we have to explain, yes, there have been issues in the past that are going to be addressed, but as Sri Lanka, as a sovereign state, we're going to address it within our own frameworks.
But do you think we have a national strategy for this? Because over the years, we've seen government after government either going to the UNHRC or trying to take this case by case, government after government.
No, unfortunately we don't. We don't have a strategy to deal with this, as you rightly said. Every government comes in and they deal with it differently. I think if we take the human rights issue, the major point is we need to go back to 2009 when the war ended. Sri Lanka entered into a joint statement. Then President Mahinda Rajapaksa and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon entered into a joint statement where it outlined what are Sri Lanka's responsibilities in order to move forward. That's our starting point. We don't need to go beyond that. And we certainly shouldn't go go any less than that. But that is our document in terms of human rights that we need to then base it around. It then gives us also, when you have a structure like that, a solid structure, it gives us the foundation to be able to also go to the international community with credibility and say we have a plan.
What's your take on the international community, the allegations that Sri Lanka does not comply with international human rights standards, especially even with the PTA, the amendments brought in 2022 too? There were allegations that that the amendments did not address critical gaps in this legislation, as well as Niruthan mentioned, the prolonged detentions to unfair trials, to all these allegations. How do you think this should be addressed in compliance with the international standards, or do we have to really look there?
I mean, absolutely, we have to look at these concerns, but there has to be a give and take on the part of the international community. I mean, let's take Ukraine. We have seen America for the last so many years. They have been criticizing and attacking Russia via sanctions and all. Just last evening, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution condemning the war in Ukraine, and America has changed tack suddenly, and they have they voted against that resolution. It's hypocrisy on the international stage. When it suits a country's or the larger powers' agenda, they turn a blind eye. When it doesn't, they will then speak out. I'm not saying that Sri Lanka then should just close shop and say we're going to do whatever we want. No, we absolutely have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And when I mean, and by that I mean, we don't need to be dictated to by the global north. At the same time, we have to obviously show them that we are capable of handling our own affairs. But that means that that's not just talk, it has to go beyond that, and there has to be credible action. So that's where we're falling short right now. We have taken this stance, successive governments have taken this stance in regard to human rights allegations, that These are issues that we will address domestically. I think it's now an accepted that every political party is going to go down that path. Now is the next step of actually implementing these proposals and taking it beyond just the boardrooms and actually taking action.